The Children's Crusade of 1212. Fact, fiction, or something in between. The Children's Crusade. Some depict it as a holy war with children at the center. Others as a movement by a few individuals that couldn't be truly classified as a crusade, as it was not officially authorized by the church. First of all, what were the Crusades? The Crusades were pilgrimages undertaken by Christians in the 11th, 12th, and 13th centuries to the Holy Lands in order to try to conquer new territories and convert the Muslim population to Christianity. They were sanctioned by the Catholic Church and had many noble leaders, such as King Richard the Lionheart of England. All in all, there are only 60 contemporary sources referring to anything like a children's crusade, and historical debates over the accuracy of calling these movements crusades has continued for many years. But in the last decade or so, historians have come to a consensus that it wasn't a crusade as such, rather bands of wandering peasants, sometimes led by children, but definitely not approved by the church. Even renowned historians were known to embellish analysis of the Children's Crusade, often mixing the two factual tales of pilgrimages by Nicholas of Cologne and Stephan of Claw, with fabrications and embellishments that have floated around since, but have no source or historical backing. Let's take a look at the two stories that inspired this fascination with the Children's Crusade. Nicholas of Cologne in Germany. Nicholas of Cologne was a shepherd boy from or near the Rhineland in Germany, whose movement began in the early spring of 1212. Although it's not clear how Nicholas's movement started, it appears he told his followers that, with one heart and one voice, they would pass through the seas on dry land and would recover the Holy Land and Jerusalem. Or, at least that's what they were telling others by the time they had reached Italy. Nicholas led his crusade bearing a cross in the shape of a Greek tau that he claimed an angel had given him. And sources at the time say his followers were numerous and came from a wide territory, with numerous amounts of people abandoning their plows, carts, or herds to join the march to the Holy Land. Initially, it seems there were multiple groups, and it's not clear when they joined all together with Nicholas as he marched across the Alps and into Italy. But by the time they arrived, a huge number had amassed, which one source approximated to more than 7,000 men, women, boys, and girls. Most sources refer to Nicholas's journey as a crusade or pilgrimage, with the children carrying crosses, staves, or scripts. The pilgrimage seemed to be looked upon favorably by those who encountered it, and opposition by the clergy was seen as jealousy by many. Allegedly, Nicholas's pilgrims marched to the harbor in Genoa, only to be disappointed and surprised when the Mediterranean Sea did not part before them, as Nicholas had promised, as the Red Sea had parted for Moses to allow them to continue across on foot. The following Sunday, the pilgrimage left the city, although many remained in Genoa, and it seemed the band split up further still, with some allegedly heading to Versailles, others to Pisa, and others taken on board ships where they may have been sold off by pirates. In some versions of the story, some even make it to Rome, where Pope Innocent III promptly told them to go home. The only thing that did happen was that the group began to split up, searching the various ports to cross over to the Holy Land, before all of them finally became discouraged and returned home to much derision, or died on the way due to hunger, thirst, and the hardships from the journey. As for Nicholas, there are few accounts of what happened to him. Some say he had traveled to Pisa with the remnants of the group and had spoken to the Pope himself. Others say he didn't survive the return journey across the Alps, and that back home his father was arrested and hanged by the angry families of the pilgrims who had not returned home. But an account from 1217 writes that Nicholas had fought bravely at Acre and at the sieges of Dymeta, returning unharmed, suggesting that at least he and some of his followers had made it close to the Holy Lands. Nicholas's journey and the accounts of independent chroniclers in nearby cities all pointed to the idea that Nicholas's crusade was in fact aptly named, even if not officially sanctioned by the church. Stephan of Claw of France. According to some chronicles, Stephan was a 12-year-old French shepherd boy who in June 1212 claimed the Lord had appeared to him in the form of a poor pilgrim and gave him a letter to the King of France in Saint-Denis. Stephan amassed a large number of other shepherd boys who joined him on his journey to Saint-Denis, where he attracted many other children who recognized him as their master and prince due to his hypnotic tales and religious conviction. The band was composed of people of all ages who marched through cities, towns, and villages carrying candles and crosses and singing, among other phrases, "Lord God, exalt Christianity. Lord God, restore to us the true cross." The children of the pilgrimage told their parents they had been moved by God and they were bound to follow Stephan on his journey. 4 chronicles from the time speak of children coming from different cities, towns, and villages, and all speak of the magnitude of the following Stephan had amassed, although it is the only chronicle of Leon that puts the estimated number at 30,000. Some suggest Stephan reached King Philip II, who was probably intimidated by the huge crowd, and told them to return home, and that Stephan stayed, instead preaching at a nearby abbey as his band of followers slowly dispersed. There is one source that points to a much more sinister end for the Children's Crusade. An unknown author wrote that many of the children continued their march to the Mediterranean, where they encountered 2 merchants who offered them space on their ships from Marseille to the Holy Lands. Allegedly, they filled 7 vessels with the children, 2 of which were shipwrecked, and all on board were drowned, and the remaining ships were captured by pirates and the children were sold into slavery. Beyond this tragic tale, contemporaries suggest that a lot of the children returned home after marching around and singing in processions for a while. It's important to note that in these accounts of Stephan's journey, none actually refer to traveling to the Holy Land, or indeed having any real purpose beyond the claim of going to God, suggesting there was no real agenda for a crusade in their plans. This supports arguments that identifying the movement as a crusade at all actually only came later, when writers connected the story of Stephan within the general accounts of the Crusades in their stories. So, were the Children's Crusades really crusades at all? Whether these 2 tales have influenced each other or not is unclear, and contemporary medieval sources on the Children's Crusades remain confused, inconsistent, and conflicting to historians.